Hello everyone, it's Tim from Spacenet TV. It's been a while since I posted a video. Some real world issues sort of ate up a lot of time, not the least of which was handling my daughter's dance competitions. Super proud of her, but please tell your friends and family to watch my videos. It's super expensive. If you have kids in sports, you know what I'm talking about. Welcome to the premiere episode of what I'm calling CinemaCents, a weekly series where we'll review the weekend's box offices, we'll examine the winners and losers, the unexpected flops, or in Disney's case, the entirely predictable ones, who's doing well, what's falling short, and the ever-increasingly rare blockbuster. Remember those? I remember those. I really enjoyed those. Where the hell did they go? We'll recap the movies with maybe some minor spoilers and commentary. We'll look at what's coming soon, maybe watch a trailer or two together. We'll even take a look at what's coming on the streaming services before they all go out of business. And I'll have some final thoughts. Thanks for being here, and let's get started. Wow, is my shirt red. I'm not going to make it through this episode, am I? Listen, if you see a swamp monster or a gaseous anomaly coming to get me, kind of give me a heads up, will you? Anyway, let's jump in. At the time of this recording, it's April 5th, 2024. The weekend of April 5th isn't exactly a historically blockbuster weekend at the box office. Unless you count last year's animated overachiever, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, that raked in over $146 million domestically on its way to over $1.3 billion worldwide. Good on that little dude. Don't expect this weekend to be pulling in anywhere near those kind of numbers. But there are some interesting things to report on. First up is Kung Fu Panda 4 dropping down to the number 5 position. Kung Fu Panda 4? Wow. I have to admit that I don't much care for the franchise. I know it's really popular with the kids and many adults too, and if you enjoy it, that's great. I assume those adult fans are also fans of Jack Black, which I am not. The Kung Fu Panda franchise is, and this is just my opinion only, what do I know, but for me it's just too much Jack Black and little else. Rounding out the cast is also Viola Davis and Awkwafina. Wow. That's the trio right out of the who's who of annoying people. This installment feels like a really low-effort outing. The story was unremarkable and uninteresting. A series of events just strung together to give Jack Black an opportunity to do his shtick, and then we'll throw some animation around it. However, Kung Fu Panda 4 is doing pretty well for itself financially, mostly because Universal still remembers how to make a movie on a reasonable budget. With an economical $85 million production budget, cheap for an animated feature, giving it a break-even point around $230-ish million. It did fall into the 5th place this weekend on only $7.8 million domestically, but I suspect it will stay in the top 5 next week as well. There really isn't much coming along to push it down the charts. A couple of limited releases and an Indio Girl special engagement release, which I think means it's playing in someone's basement. The good news for Universal is that they've made a few bucks here, crossing into profitability somewhere in the range of $175 million and counting. Any further box office will only add to the profits. On the downside, this does mean you need to prepare yourself for Kung Fu Panda 5 coming quickly, because isn't Kung Fu Panda supposedly going to figure prominently in the DreamWorks Land in Universal's new Epic Universe theme park? That's set to open in Orlando sometime in 2025 if it stays on track. So Universal better pull out all the stops and get the people behind Godzilla -1 to get to work on this right away, if they have any prayer of getting it out before the theme park gates open. Dropping into the number 4 spot is a new release, The First Omen. I'm not a real big fan of horror films. Classic Universal monsters, sure. Modern horror films, not so much. So I haven't seen this movie. I probably won't be seeing this movie. Friends who have seen it, though, were very positive about it. This isn't going to be a blockbuster. It's not going to make a ton of money. But with a very modest $30 million production budget, this movie should easily reach the break-even point and make some profit. It's off to a reasonable start, pulling in a respectable $8.3 million on its debut weekend. I hear that the cinematography is exceptional. capturing the look of the original 1976 Omen movie and keeping mostly to practical and not optical effects. Nell Tiger Free's performance was excellent and a real standout for her. I'm usually not a fan of prequels, and I'm looking at you, X-Men Wolverine, Prometheus, The Hobbit. I would mention Star Wars, but given the race sequels, they now look like Shakespearean works of art. There is enough gruesome moments to keep horror fans happy. The story is well crafted, enough to keep the plot moving along. The attention to detail to make a movie resemble its predecessor that's nearly 50 years old is well done and shows respect to the source materials. All in all, if you're a horror fan or a fan of the Omen series in general, this is a must-see for you. Go have fun. Don't look for me there. Settling into a number 3 slot is Ghostbusters Afterthought. Cash grab. Frozen Empire. Never has a movie jangled the member keys so hard that it caused an actual real-life earthquake in New York. But Ghostbusters managed to pull it off. Ghostbusters opened to a healthy $45 million in its first weekend. Not a bad start for a movie that had a reasonable $100 million budget, not to mention the star power and nostalgia bait that was hoping to propel it along. But it's been a bumpy ride ever since the nice start. Dropping off 65% week 2 over week 1 does not bode well. While there's a number of factors that go into it, a simple rule of thumb is that if it drops more than 60% or more from week 1 to week 2, it has a good chance to fail financially. Dropping another 42% into week 3, taking in a mere $9 million, says it's in real trouble. As you can see here, it's falling off the pace set by the opening, and it's unlikely that this movie will reach its break-even point. The international market doesn't seem to be much interested in it at all. Now, I'm a true Ghostbusters fan. I saw the original movie when I was a kid. I watched the animated series. I even liked Ghostbusters 2. Okay, fine, sure. It was crap, but I liked it. It was fun. Ghostbusters 2016 may have been the vanguard of the girl boss movement. It was devoid of any redeeming value. It was so bad to have actually reached back in time to ruin the original movies, to the point that I couldn't even watch them anymore. I was happily surprised when along came 2021's Ghostbusters Afterlife, directed by Jason Reitman, the son of Ivan Reitman, director of the original 2 Ghostbuster films. Ghostbusters Afterlife was conceived to be a passing of the torch, so to speak, both in terms of the storyline and the real-life legacy of the franchise. It really didn't do that very well, but it did give us a nice send-off to the original characters. That should have been the end. But this is the 2020s. We just keep going with more and more and more sequels and prequels. We have no ability to innovate anything anymore, and we're grabbing onto any past property that might, maybe, sorta, coulda turned into a franchise that might bring in some easy cash. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire was the one too many times to the well moment. It should fail, and it should end Ghostbusters, which was never meant to be a franchise in the first place. The original was a tempest in a bottle. It was perfect. Leave it alone. Rest in peace, Ghostbusters. Something new dropped into second place this weekend. Something I definitely didn't expect. Monkey Man. A little, I'll call it indie-ish or indie adjacent, low-budget film financed by production companies, several of them, most notably Thunder Road Films, who is a production studio behind the John Wick franchise. That says something kind of interesting. Netflix had originally acquired the rights to the film. However, after concerns the film might be too graphic for the Indian audience, Jordan Peele took an interest in the film and helped transition its release from Netflix to a theatrical release under Universal. That's seeming like a smart move for them both. I knew practically nothing about this movie beyond the synopsis I read right before recording this video, which, by the way, sounds like a fairly routine revenge film, seemingly nothing all that special. An anonymous young man unleashes a campaign of vengeance against the corrupt leaders who murdered his mother and continues to systematically victimize the poor and powerless. Okay, sure. Monkey Man is Dev Patel's first time out as a director. You probably know Dev best from his role in Slumdog Millionaire. Patel took on several roles in this production, including an actor, director, co-writer. Apparently, he threw himself into this role a little too hard and suffered several injuries during filming, including a broken hand, 2 broken toes, a torn shoulder, a massive eye infection. You know, I got a really painful splinter yesterday, Dev, so don't come flexing at me. This movie landed in the number 2 spot with a meager $10 million production budget. I'm not sure if that says more about the movie or the general state of mainstream Hollywood's offerings in general. Not that you have to have some gigantic budget to make a good movie, but this plot sounds like one of 1,000 others just like it, except that it takes place in India and has a monkey mask in it. However, it's resonating really well with audiences and critics alike. They seem to like it quite a bit. Rarely do you see the critics and the audiences agreeing so closely. You know, usually when critics like it is when I want to bail out, but well, let's see where this one goes. Monkey Man has nearly reached the break-even point of around 20 million on his first week. That may even be high. The movie didn't seem to have a lot of promotion or advertising that I saw anyway. So it may be more around 15 million on its break-even point. That's really good for Universal. That's really good for Jordan Peele. That's really good for everybody. Will it have the legs to rake in some real big profits? I have no idea. However, maybe this will be the Godzilla -1 of the revenge film. Certainly Thunder Road Films knows the revenge market very well. This is our second R-rated movie on the top 5 after the first Omen horror flick. It has a lot of bloody violence, coarse language, nudity, adult content, and drug use throughout. Maybe I will go see this after all. Finishing out the top 5 list is Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire, holding the number 1 spot for a second consecutive week. A real road trip buddy film kind of comedy in the Hope and Crosby and Martin and Lewis fashion. This is the 5th installment in the Warner Brothers MonsterVerse franchise and 7th if you include the TV series. Directed by Adam Wingard, this installment pits the 2 titans against a new formidable adversary, Scar King. The movie delivers a lot of action and battles and attempts to delve deeper into the origins of the Titans and the mysteriousness of Skull Island. I really don't watch for the intricate plots. I love Godzilla movies. I always have. It's a guilty little pleasure. I love them all from the modern CGI MonsterVerse right down to the guy in the rubber suit. This film had a production budget of just $135 million. Did I just say just $135 million? Working for Disney tends to double the production cost. Disney would spend $135 million on another 10 minutes short about that stupid Pixar lamp. $135 million is actually a pretty good price tag for this kind of heavy VFX-loaded film. The visual effects look good, but not great. It's a trend in modern VFX work of the past few years. The industry is trying new technologies and methodologies to produce effects faster and cheaper. Many have noticed that the effects looked better several years ago than now. They're not wrong, and it's not a perception thing. They are worse than they were. Slightly by design. The fact of the matter is that VFX budgets and the time it took to produce them was ballooning out of control. So a number of VFX houses and internal studios are working on new software and methodologies to improve the process. That will, hopefully improve quickly. But until then, there are times when the VFX work looks as if it was done on an Atari. And not just this movie, but actually across the entire industry. Godzilla and Kong had a monstrous opening weekend, earning $80 million in North America and surpassing all expectations. This marked the second largest MonsterVerse opening to date. This robust start suggests that the film is on a solid path towards profitability, especially considering its comparatively modest production budget within the MonsterVerse. The movie's break-even point should be around $335 million, a target it has already completely surpassed with a global box office take of $361 million. making it a profitable venture for Legendary and Warner Brothers at a time when Warner Brothers desperately needs profitable ventures. This success, coupled with minimum competition in its release window, positions Godzilla and Kong as potentially the most profitable entry in the MonsterVerse to date. So there you have it. A rundown of the box office for the past weekend. Couple of surprises, some good and bad news. All in all, not a bad weekend. Due to the Writers and Screen Actors Guild strikes, this movie season is going to be slow. Like, super slow. So we can expect some surprises perhaps from indie films or small productions that make their way and break through where in a crowded marketplace they might not have. Looking forward to seeing what that may look like. We're probably going to have a bit of a period here where things just kind of drag until things return to, and I'll use the term loosely, normal. Probably not until towards the end of the year or even 2025. I know a lot of studios have really ramped up production to try to get things out this year because of these strikes dragging on for months have caused them to really back up. But there's only really so fast you can get these things done. Not going to go into trailers this week. Probably not much worth going into. There's nothing new coming out this next weekend, but we'll get into some next week. And until then, you take care. Bye for now.